A big warm welcome to everybody who's investing in themselves today by joining in the first of two of our masterclasses in celebration of National Mentoring Day. I'm your host, Aurora Dawn Campbell, Business Director at the IAPC&M, and we're passionate about CPD, which is why we make these freely available for the benefit of everybody. So in the hot seat today, hello, Nikki.
Hello, welcome everybody.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. So did you want to say something? Sorry.
no, I was just going to say it is lovely and it's really great that we get to celebrate all things mentoring for a day.
Yeah, and actually on the right day as well, as normally it's at the weekend, or it feels like it's always not quite on a day that we can make. So good. So let me introduce you properly, Nikki. Nikki Wild is a highly qualified, well sought after coach and mentor at the highest level. She's based in the UK. Nikki's been coaching for nearly 2 decades, supporting directors and their teams to, as she calls it, play nicely together so they can be more positive, more productive, and more profitable. I like that, the 3 Ps. Nikki is a fellow of the IAPC&M, and she's also a key member of our leadership team, and she's the head of our business of coaching program. It's a self-teach 12 modular e-program which she developed for newish practitioners, but even those who have been around for a couple of years still benefit, and she brings that to life every month in her power hour. I also like to find out something unique or a little bit different about our speakers, because obviously the blurb is out there in terms of the full bio. And Nikki told me she only had 2 things on her life bucket list, which she's already done. So that was to own a grand piano, because I know you're very passionate about being a pianist, and she wanted to race up the drag strip at Santo Pod. Where is Santo Pod?
Santa Pod, excuse me, Santa Pod Raceway is in the Midlands in the UK.
Ah, okay. So tick done, both of them. Good. So without further ado, let's learn from our resident expert what the key differences are between coaching and mentoring so that we too can expand our scope of work. And don't forget to take notes on your CPD pads. And if you don't have one, I'll drop the link in the chat box in a moment. So we're going to have a discussion for about 50 to 60 minutes to include questions, Nikki, or would you prefer questions at the end?
I think probably questions at the end.
Okay, all right.
Because
So
because I
keep your
think that yeah,
questions, put them in the
yeah,
chat box, and I'll make sure they get answered.
lovely. Thank you very much. And I have planned for there to be shed questions at the end, but I just want to give a sort of overview, um, and then see what specifics come out of all of that. So we'll keep an eye on the chat box as we go. So fantastic to have some of you here live with us in the Zoom meeting room, and fantastic to see some of you on the live stream as well. I can't see the live stream Q&A, so but if there are questions posted on the Facebook group or the link or the live stream channels, I'll have a look at those afterwards. I might be able to answer a question or two in the live stream chat threads after the session has ended. But lovely to have some of you live with us in the Zoom meeting room as well. And obviously today we are celebrating all things mentoring. And at the IAPC&M, our focus is on both professional coaches and professional mentors. And a lot of us have both of those hats. Some of us have one or the other. And for those, and regardless of whether we are specialising in coaching or mentoring, or we offer both services, from my point of view, it's really important to be able to articulate to our potential clients and our current clients what is the difference between those two areas of service that we provide. So what I'm going to do here is share with you some of the things that I've accumulated over the nearly 2 decades of doing this, my little sort of summary, if you like. I do have a cheat sheet which has I'm going to share with you some of the basically screenshots from the cheat sheet, and I'll give you the link to that. It'll come up on the screen at the end if you do want that cheat sheet. For those who are here in the Zoom meeting, I've put the link in the chat as well. And but it's to get you to the point of being able to articulate those differences, and I've said what the differences are and why it matters. So I'm going to bring up a little bit of a PowerPoint thing. Hopefully that screen share will work. When you see me looking sideways, it's because I've got dual screen, so I can see all your smiley faces on this side, and I've got my screen share on the other window. So if you see me looking sideways, that's what I'm looking at. And so what's the difference between coaching and mentoring? Why does that matter? And so a few things. I'm going to think of this from the point of view of the why, the what, and the how, which we love in coaching world. So why does it matter? I'll come to that first. And then what is the difference between coaching and mentoring, the purposes, the outcomes, the benefits of both? And then how do we put that into practice? So how are we going to use mentoring? How might people choose the right mentor for them? The difference between certification and accreditation when you're choosing your professionals. And then at the end, I'm hoping you'll come up with your own action plan from whatever you take away from this masterclass. And as I said, there's the cheat sheet link as well. So why does it matter? If you've come up, particularly in the corporate world, your experience may be like mine, that the terms are used interchangeably, and it really frustrates me having a professional coaching accreditation and a professional mentoring accreditation that in the everyday world those words get used interchangeably, and there are inconsistent definitions of both. So that what happens is as a result is we end up with mismatched expectations. Somebody asks for coaching and they get mentoring, or they ask for mentoring and they get coaching. And there is confusion about what the purposes of the meetings are, why they've engaged somebody. The results then end up inconsistent. The success measures fall short of what was hoped for. And what generally happens then is somebody ends up disappointed or they become disillusioned. I've had people tell me that coaching doesn't work, and then it turned out they had never had coaching, they'd had mentoring. Or somebody will tell me that they're frustrated because their mentor isn't actually acting as a mentor. So then you end up with this disillusion. And then the result of that is, of course, people are then disinclined to engage with coaching or mentoring in the future. So that's for me why it matters that we can get really clear on our distinction between the two and how do we describe that to others. Dawn very beautifully gave me a lovely introduction. I am a finance professional in my background, and so accreditation and professionalism has always been part of my finance career and is also important to me in the coaching and the mentoring work. And since 2009 my mission has been to de-stress directors and empower their teams to play nicely together, so they're more effective, productive and motivated. And a big part of that is mentoring, because I work with finance professionals, and very often my finance directors will only allow me to meet with them because I have sat where they have sat. As an ex-finance director, I can talk their language. So but knowing that gives us a little insight into one of the differences between coaching and mentoring is you have walked the path that the client is on, so you can differentiate. But before I get into the differences, I want to acknowledge that there are a lot of similarities. And I think this is why the term coaching and mentoring, why those phrases get used interchangeably. Because if I look down the skill set, it's the same for both. And so you might be engaging somebody who will have, hopefully in your meetings with them, there will be confidentiality, good levels of rapport, empathy skills, good listening skills, good questioning skills. There will be a focus on the coachee or the mentee. We expect our coachees and mentees to take an active role. We expect there to be no judgment. And it can be in a B2C or a B2B environment. So with all of these similarities, it's not surprising that those two things get used interchangeably. So I think it's important that, having acknowledged that, and I've also, in my cheat sheet, I've kind of extended it into training, consulting, and also acknowledging counselling and therapy as well. But for the purposes of today, we're going to focus on the difference between coaching and mentoring specifically. But the point is, if you've got these things on the surface, everything looks very similar, how do we then differentiate between coaching and mentoring? So the first thing I'm going to think about is the major difference between pure coaching. So I'm going to talk about pure coaching, as I know there are variations that might seem like a bit more directive or a little bit more leading. But in the pure coaching space compared with a mentoring space, the main difference is where does the input come from? So in a mentoring session, the reason I choose my mentors is that they have the experience of what it is I want to achieve. They've been there, done that, got the t-shirt, they have walked the path already. And I am deliberately choosing somebody who has already achieved what I'm looking to achieve so that I can tap into their experience, their knowledge. I can learn from their mistakes. All of those things I am getting from my mentor. Whereas if I'm having a pure coaching session, absolutely nothing comes from my coach. There is nothing, I don't know anything at the end of the session that I didn't know at the beginning about the coach. Absolutely zero input from my coach. And for me, that's the really, really crucial difference between the two. And so by definition, the mentor will be making some assessments of what the mentee is involved with. There will be some guidance involved. There may be some advice, although we're then straying into training and consulting territory if we're starting to give advice. And then and if the questions are more leading or more directive in their style, then that again tends to be more akin to mentoring than pure coaching. So if that kind of first question is, do I want somebody who's walked the path already? Am I therefore looking for a mentor rather than a coach? One of my mentors many years ago said a phrase which I absolutely loved, and I have lived as a sort of philosophy ever since, which is learn from the person who's a step ahead of you and assist the person who's a step behind you. We're all on journeys. We can all learn from the person who's a step ahead of us, and we can all assist the person who's a step behind us. And for me, that's a lovely description of what mentoring is. I'm learning from the people who've walked the path already, and I'm assisting as a mentor myself. I'm assisting those who are following in my footsteps. Whereas coaching, I can coach anybody on anything because I don't need to know anything about their world or their subject, because everything is coming from the coachee. Some of the other things that we might therefore look for if we're looking for distinguishing mentoring will tend to engage for a specific task or experience. This isn't a definitive, this is just a sort of general distinctions. So there will be some blurring between the lines. But in general, mentoring, I'm called in to work on a specific project or a specific area that of focus. The focus is where are we now and where we want to get to, just as it is in coaching. But the client is more in a state of wanting to expand their knowledge, want to know how to apply what they know and take action. So the focus therefore is generally on, in addition to performance improvement, there may be some knowledge expansion, some skills expansion. And so in general, there will be quite a lot of focus on the doing and the how are they doing what they want to do. So choosing the right mentor who can share all that knowledge, that experience, you can start to see why that is an important aspect of mentoring. And the sessions themselves will have a slightly different flavor or a different experience for the client. So, as I said, in a pure coaching environment, the coachee gets nothing at all about the coach that they didn't know at the start. Whereas in the mentoring session, the mentor is sharing what they know and what their other clients have experienced. There is going to be some input from the mentor, rather in addition to what the coach is or the mentee is bringing to the session. So there will be learning. The coachee will be drawing from their own experience, whereas the mentee is learning from the experience of others. So it's this sort of internal versus external sort of source of information and answers. And the use of past experiences as well. It's that mentor's experience as opposed to the mentee's own experience. And when you're looking for solutions, in coaching, nothing is prescribed by the coach. It is all entirely down to the client's choice. We trust that our clients will make the right choices. Of course, we assist them to get there through the elegant questioning, but it's entirely the client's agenda and entirely the client's decision as to what to do. We make absolutely no judgment, no guidance. It is in pure coaching, It's all down to the client to choose. Whereas in mentoring, the mentor's tried and trusted solutions will be a reference point for the mentees. The mentee is still in charge. The mentee still gets to choose. And we still trust that they will choose the right course of action for their own context. But we're giving them more input from reference sources that the mentor is bringing to the party as well. So I didn't set this up as a quick poll because it wouldn't work for the live stream, but maybe have a quick think, and for those who are here in the Zoom could perhaps use the Zoom chat box just to say, would you say, based on my little sort of overview of the differences, would you say you have experienced mentoring or coaching or both? And how was your most recent mentoring or coaching procured? So did you have it where you were in the workplace and you had your employer provided you with some in-house coaching or mentoring? Did you engage, or was it an external coach or mentor engaged by your employer? Or was it you engaged them privately yourself? And then maybe that was reimbursed by the company, or you paid for it out of your own pocket. Or obviously the other option, if it was neither, was never received coaching or mentoring. And it's really interesting because quite a lot of my private clients, although they might be hiring me and engaging me privately, their companies will reimburse them the cost of the fees, which is quite nice. So we've got a mixture coming through. So both, and it was external, both and none. Cool. So we have got a mixture of things. So hopefully this is for those of you who've said none, who have hopefully helped you to think about how you might choose one in the future if you're thinking of doing that. And those of you who have engaged with both, maybe this is giving you a bit of a insight as to the purposes of each. Both are really valuable, and if you were going to choose your next coach or mentor, you've got more of a checklist to identify specifically which one is going to be the most appropriate. I was looking at why would we choose to work with a coach or mentor, for particularly those of you who've never experienced that before. What's the reason you might choose to ask a coach or mentor for some support? And there's a whole range of things, both in the space of corporate world, where a lot of my work is done, and the private individuals. So teams bring in coaches and mentors to accelerate onboarding, to embed learning. In companies and team environments, we might be looking to nurture and develop talent. We might be looking to retain staff. A lot of companies will bring in coaches and mentors for to make sure that their valued employees are supported, developed, and it is very much a valuable asset. The executives that I work with in companies tell me that they really value that their company provides this mentoring and coaching service. People might be looking to improve relationships, for aspects of communication, collaboration, and so on. Strengthening mental resilience in a fast-changing world where we all deal with all sorts of stresses and challenges in life. Having that mentor to walk the path with, or that coach to help us to have that mental clarity, can be a really valuable ally. And the thing that my clients tell me they really value about me, whether I'm in there as their mentor or their coach, is that I am completely detached from what's going on in whatever it is they bring to the meetings. I have no emotional investment in what's going on. So they have that completely neutral space where they can work through whatever it is they need to tackle, whether so most of us have got friends and family that we will talk to, but they will tell us what they think we should do, and that's from the perspective of, if they were in our shoes, this is what they would do. But they're not in our shoes, they're not in our position. We don't necessarily want to tell colleagues, because we don't necessarily want to change their perception of us. If we admit that we're struggling with something, that might sort of undermine our reputation. We probably don't want to tell our household, because we don't want to worry them or let them think that we're worried about something. So having a mentor or a coach allows you to have that neutral space, completely confidential, completely safe, where you can discuss anything. And clients have told me all sorts of interesting things over the years. But that mental resilience, having that space where there's no emotional attachment, no judgment, completely confidential, completely safe space, is so valuable. Might be practical reasons, particularly in mentoring. We might be looking to increase productivity, or deliver a particular outcome. And so when it comes to setting our goals in both coaching and mentoring, really important to have clear goals to work towards, so that we can get to those desired outcomes faster and more easily and more effectively than if we were just left to our own devices. Which is why I've got a box of apples there. And we happen to be celebrating Mentoring Day, which is in the middle of it, well, late autumn. And I think about both mentoring and coaching as like looking after the orchard. So in spring, we will have our orchard, and we'll have our blossoming apple trees. And if we just left it to nature, we would get some apples come autumn. But if we look after our orchard and we tend it and we prune it and we fertilize it and we make sure that those trees are allowed to flourish and they're given all the resources they need to perform at their best, then come autumn we get a bumper harvest. We get juicy, ripe apples. And coaching and mentoring for me is like that. It's like looking after your orchard so that you get the bumper harvest. And there are all sorts of studies that have looked into the value of coaching and mentoring and the benefits of it, and how much extra return on investment both individuals and companies see when they invest in coaching and mentoring. I mentioned that talent development programs quite often will incorporate a lot of mentoring and coaching, either alongside training. So there'll be skills development, but we've also got, as well as the technical skills and the interpersonal skills, we've got the mindset. So most of the work I do as a mentor is on the mindset. There will be some element of, again, this is a difference between coaching and mentoring, is that mentoring will also work on some skill set things. We're sharing some knowledge and experience. So we might be helping them with some technical skill set or some interpersonal skills. Although again, not straying into training and consulting territory. Whereas pure coaching is very much mindset and allowing the coachee to decide on their application of the existing technical skill set that they already have in their toolkit. Very often the mentor is somebody internally, so particularly in talent development programs, the mentor will very often be a line manager or a peer or a colleague, whereas the coach is independent. So very often I'll, if I'm working with organizations to set up a mentoring and a coaching culture, I'll encourage the coach to be someone who is a completely different department if it's an internal person. So the mentors will be the same department, because obviously you want someone who's been there, done that. Whereas the coach, you want that independence ideally. So there isn't a temptation to start giving advice. And of course, if you bring in an external coach or mentor, then you are going to get independence and confidentiality more easily built in than within house. One of my current clients who is having a mixture of mentoring and coaching, their company has brought me in to work with them, and I'm nothing to do with the company, but I've been brought in because the internal temptation to start giving advice was too strong. So they brought me in because I'm completely outside of the organization. And you will set up bespoke arrangements complementing existing talent development programs to ensure maximum value. So whatever we do as professionals, so if you're thinking of this as a coach or mentor and thinking about how do you articulate this to your potential clients, then you can explain how you will complement whatever they've already got in place. And if you are the coachee or the mentee and you're thinking of hiring a coach or a mentor, you can now think about what have you got in place in your performance development programs already, and how might that mentoring complement what you've already got in place. So maybe you've got some training lined up and you're looking at how can you then embed that knowledge and have the accountability to make sure that the new habits are formed to implement whatever it is you have learned. So how do you go about choosing somebody? I've put an example up there I have on my own coaching website, how to choose a coach, and there's a basically 10 questions to ask a professional before you hire them. And there's a little screenshot there of that example. So before you hire a professional, I hope that you are thinking about what's your why. Why are you thinking of engaging them? What is your outcome and purpose that you're looking to achieve, so that you can talk that through with them and make sure they're a good fit. But I also hope that you're thinking about the type of person you want to engage. So is that mentor, or what skills or credentials does that mentor have? What if you're looking for someone who's been there and done that? Have they actually been there and done that? What credentials are they bringing to the party? Um, do you want somebody internal or external? How detached do you want your professional to be? And when you're thinking about experience, there's that difference between how we do things around here versus how others have done it well. Very often we get stuck in a rut of the habits of this is how we always do it. And bringing that fresh perspective externally that says, well, actually, I can see how you do it around here. And let me share with you some examples of how it's been done in other places that have worked really well. And that's where the value of an external mentor can come in, because they have seen similar things in other environments. And so you get the advantage of seeing all those different options without actually having to go there yourself. And making sure that you've got someone who is objective, who is detached from the day to day or from the emotional aspects of whatever it is you're dealing with. So when you're meeting somebody to suss them out and decide whether they're a good fit for you, those are some of the things to have in consideration. And most coachees, that's from the ICF Global Coaching Study, most coachees find their coaches through referrals and word of mouth. That's true of mentoring as well. Most mentees find their mentors through recommendations, through words of mouth. There are also professional mentoring programs. So within CIMA, which is my professional body for the accountancy, there is a mentoring program where senior executives and also established qualified professionals will mentor new students in training. There are, in the coaching world, we know that a lot of the training bodies will set up a mentoring where established will mentor new. So I host a monthly coaching peer coaching mentoring group, I suppose it is probably mentoring, for coaches with the Coaching Academy. And so new coaches in training with the Coaching Academy come for a monthly mentoring session, group mentoring with me once a month. So there are mentoring sessions already set up where those programs exist. And so it's worth investigating. If you're, whichever professional bodies you are part of, find out what mentoring arrangements they have. In the business coaching world, I know there are a lot of schemes, a lot of local council support schemes where there are mentoring schemes set up where small businesses can have mentors in the business world, for example. So lots of opportunities for mentors to volunteer as mentors in all sorts of specific niches. And if there isn't one for your niche, then maybe that's a gap that you can set one up. And so that might be an option to look at. And certainly a lot of charities also have options for volunteers to act as mentors. So lots of opportunities for choosing and for sourcing a good professional to work with. I've asked the question, it's a slightly rhetorical question, is there such a thing as professional accreditation for coaches and mentors? Of course, the answer is a big, huge, resounding yes, because it's what we do at the IAPC&M. And it has always been really important to me as a qualified accountant. CPD and accreditation has always been part of my world, although anyone can call themselves an accountant. But hopefully people are only hiring legitimate qualified professionals. In the same way, in the coaching and mentoring world, it's not a protected term. Anyone can call themselves a coach or a mentor without any verification whatsoever. So instead of asking someone, are you qualified, which is a little bit open-ended, I usually encourage people to ask about certifications and accreditation status. So are you a certified professional, and are you accredited, and who are you accredited by? To the two questions I encourage people to ask. And the difference between the two is certified means that somebody has completed a set of training, and a third party has certified that they have completed that training. So if you think of certification as a point in time, on a given day, I completed some training to whatever standards that training course required, and I've got the certificate that said I showed up and completed the training. It's a snapshot in time, whereas accreditation is through time. It's an ongoing status. And accreditation is formal recognition that a particular capability and standards have been achieved and are maintained on an ongoing basis. So certification, snapshot in time, the person completed the training, whereas accreditation is ongoing. So an accreditation will require a maintenance of skills, a skills update, CPD, and hopefully some supervision as well. So whether it is a mentor or a coach, I hope that you are asking them what certifications do they have in place, and what is their accreditation status, and who is that accreditation with. I meet a lot of people who tell me they're accredited, and it turns out they are certified. And I am absolutely fine with that, as long as they are using the correct terminology, so we're not misleading our audiences one way or the other. So if you are choosing your professional, nice questions for you to be able to ask them. And then the last little thing that I wanted to touch on for those who are thinking about engaging their next mentor or coach, if you're going to have a mentoring session, how do you want to make sure you get the best out of it? I did this with a group of science professionals. We spent a day with them looking at various aspects of their performance development, and I ran this session on the difference between coaching and mentoring, so they could, because they have an in-house mentoring program, and almost all of the technicians, these fantastic technical experts, almost all of them said that they love this because till now their mentoring sessions had basically been meet with a colleague for a cup of coffee and have a nice chat, and that was it. And then they were ticking off this box saying they'd had some mentoring, when actually all they'd had was maybe a bit of peer support. Certainly wasn't any, there was no knowledge transfer, no skills transfer, no development. And they loved this cheat sheet that they took away for the different, to say this is what we expect from mentoring, because they could then I did have to apologize to the mentors in the room, because the mentors are all going, oh, they're going to ask so much more of us now, because the mentors thought they'd had an easy life of just meeting for a coffee every few weeks and ticking that box to say I've done my mentoring. We realize we've got to show up and do a bit more. But all of the mentees would say, this is great, because I'm now going to demand of my mentor that there is more to it than just meeting for a nice chat. Same with coaching, of course. Hopefully it is more than just meeting for a nice chat. So if you want to make sure you get the most out of those meetings with your mentor, preparation is key. What do you want to work on? Come with some focus, know what it is you want to tackle, know what you want to leave with. So what do you want to work on, your subject? What's your desired outcome? So you know what the goal is for that meeting. Have some way of keeping notes, keeping record, however you record that for yourself, because the expectation, of course, is that you're going to refer to those notes in between meetings or between sessions. And one of the things we do to empower our mentees and coaches is we expect them to do the work. We expect them to take the notes, choose their actions, go away, put it into practice, and then report back. So make some way of recording all of that. And keeping a journal or a record of progress in between sessions. I know life gets really busy. I am as guilty as the next person of having good intentions of keeping a daily journal, and then I get to the end of the week and think, oh, I haven't done any reflections on how this week has gone. So I know life is busy, and this seems like one more thing to do. I also know the value of doing it, because you keep track of how far you've got. You can see what you've accomplished. You can record the successes to celebrate. And actually, it's quite nice to be able to look back and see that progression. When it feels like there's just gradual progress or things haven't really changed, you can look back a few weeks and go, actually, you know what? Compared with a few weeks ago, we've come a long way. So I'm a big fan of keeping some sort of journal or record of progress. I give templates to my clients, some of whom use them, some of whom completely disregard them, and they come up with their own versions. One of my clients just basically sends me a weekly WhatsApp to say this is what they've been up to, but that's their way of capturing it. So whatever works for you, find some method. And from a mindset point of view, we want to come to meetings open-minded, being prepared for a challenge, because whether we are being coached or mentored, if we want to go from where we are now to somewhere else, something is going to have to be different. There is going to have to be some change. So expect some change. Be prepared for a bit of a challenge. Be open-minded, and you will get the most value out of your meetings. So that was my little sort of whistle-stop tour of the overview of coaching and mentoring and what the differences are and why it matters. A little bit extra around how to get the most out of it, how to choose a good quality professional to work with, and think about what's going to work well for you in your context. So, an opportunity now for questions. I wanted to leave plenty of time for some extra questions at the end. We've got a chance for some questions, but also I want to encourage you to think about what's your main takeaway from this. So we know the value of continuous professional development and keeping track of what it is that we are taking away from any of our masterclasses. So maybe now's a chance to think about what's the thing that you want to remember from this, and what action are you going to take as a result, either for the rest of today or in the coming week or in the coming month. What's your action plan? And if you do want to go and grab that cheat sheet to download, it's just 2 sides of A4, so it's a nice, easy to consume thing, and it's just got those comparison tables with a couple of comments on it. So if you do want to go and grab the cheat sheet, you're very welcome to. And if you want to hook up with me on LinkedIn, that is also an option, so you can hunt me down on LinkedIn as well. So,
You, Nikki.
Dawn,
It might be
I'm going to
worth you typing in the cheat sheet just in the chat box so people can grab it easily.
Wonderful.
We'll put it in there. Okay.
Thank you.
There we go. There's the link in the cheat sheet.
Oh,
And for
wonderful. Thank you.
those who are watching the live stream, I'll go to the live stream chat thread, and I can paste the link into the thread on the live stream as well when we are there.
Wow,
So,
thank you. I always learn so much when we spend time together. There's always a little gem even though I spend a lot of time with you, Nikki, I always learn a little bit more. And I really liked the bit in your bio about playing nicely and positivity, productivity, and performance, I think it was. So those P's. I do have a question for you from Rowena. Would a mentoring session count as CPD? Because she is learning something. Well, that was quite a good
yes,
question.
I would definitely include it. It depends on the professional body and what their definitions of CPD are. I am registered with the CPD Standards Office, so my sessions I can officially certify as CPD points because I've chosen to have that additional accreditation as one of the elements. But if it depends on the professional body, and if they just require you to keep a log of how have you developed your skill set, your knowledge, your abilities, if it's enhancing your abilities, then I would absolutely say include it in the CPD log. If you include it in there, then you've got it recorded. And so if the professional body said, actually, this isn't quite what we mean, then you've not lost anything by recording it. But certainly I would, and you can always ask your coach or mentor, whoever it is who you're having the mentoring with, to certify that you attended for how many meetings or whatever, how many hours it is. So I'm always happy to verify my clients, my mentees, for their CPD logs. So definitely, yes, good question.
Yeah, because if there's an input, I want to learn something, and then as output, I'm going to do this action. It's CPD, and that's one of the things that people tell us as prospective inquiries. The IAPC&M are not prescriptive what constitutes CPD. As long as you've got something out of it and you've done something with it, it's CPD. And as we know, in case anybody's wondering, 1 CPD credit equals 1 hour. I can't remember what the US term for CPD is, but CPD is continuous professional development. Can you remember what it is, Nikki?
No, I can't remember. It's similar to that, but yes, I can't remember what the phrase is.
Very similar, very similar. Catalina, did you want to
Thank
say
you.
something?
Yes, thank you so much, Nikki. It was very enlightening in finding the differences between various discipline. That brings a lot of clarity. And I was wondering, how do you intentionally transition between coaching and mentoring within the same relationship without confusing the client?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think the first thing comes down to us as the provider of the service being really clear in our own minds where those distinctions lie and where the barrier, where the difference comes. When I have a meeting with a potential client, at the start where they're describing what it is they want to accomplish, and in my head I'm designing their coaching program or their mentoring program as they're describing what their needs are. When I present it up front, I will say maybe it's this coaching program which will include an element of mentoring where that's appropriate, or it might be there's this mentoring program and I will build in some coaching along the way where that is necessary. So I'm kind of I am making either a coaching program that may or may not include some mentoring, or a mentoring program that may or may not include some coaching. So up front, I've been clear and transparent with the client whether it is coaching or mentoring or both. And then within a session itself, if they've come for a coaching session, then we've set it up in the housekeeping at the start. So I have reminded them. So I will remind them that you are here for coaching. So I am going to give you no input. I'm going to be the one asking the questions. All the answers are going to come from you. So I will remind them at the start. If we get to the point where they are absolutely stuck and they are asking for some mentoring, then I will literally say, okay, so I'm going to take my coach hat off and put my mentor hat on. How about I share with you some examples of this thing that you've just asked about? And even then, I'm asking the client's permission to switch from one to the other. I'm not assuming that I'm just going to start throwing examples at them. Or similarly, in a mentoring session, we might have said this is a mentoring session. And there'll be a point in which I've shared with them. I said, I'll tell you what, I'm going to switch into coach mode and let you decide. And I'll just sit and ask some questions, and you can process everything I've shared with you. And we'll work through this we'll now take this as a coaching session. So I might just work them through, share some information, and then just take a grow exercise, for example, to just use a grow structure around the information I've just shared for them to choose how they use it. But it is that kind of being clear yourself of where the differences are, so that you know where you've switched from one to the other, so that you can then make sure that your client is aware. To some degree, the clients don't really care, as long as they are getting what they want from the session. They don't necessarily need us to be really obvious about, you are now only having coaching, you are now only having mentoring. So it will be the transitions will be a lot smoother than that, and it will be
correct.
It'll feel more natural once you're used to it and once the client is used to it. But I am clear with my clients that they are if they are having both, they are getting both, and that there is a definite difference between them.
And that's why the IAPC&M say contracting. It all starts with contracting. It is so important for those expectations, those boundaries. And quite often people are new coaches are concerned about, well, I've asked all the questions and the client is struggling. Of course, we don't want the client to struggle. If they can't work it out, maybe we're not asking the right questions as a coach. But if we are asking the right questions and they are struggling, we don't want to leave them there. So for those of us who are experienced and accredited, then yes, it's great to ask permission, as you say, Nikki. And I literally use the same one as you. So, I can take my coaching hat off and put my mentoring on if that's going to help you. And I will share how some of my other clients have done it. So again, I'm not putting myself in a position where I'm sharing what I've done so that they can come back and said, you said this worked for you. It's about, well, I can share what some of my other clients found successful, blah, blah, blah. Because we don't want our clients to struggle. I know there's that perception. Coaches have got the answer within. It's just our job to drag it out. It's not literal.
And sorry, I'm sure you have. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, just to add to that, okay, it depends on what the client is trying to achieve, because as a really silly example, if a client wants to know what's the answer of 2 times 3 and nobody has ever taught them how to do multiplication, no amount of me asking questions is ever going to bring the answer out of them, because they literally don't have the answer. So our assumption that the clients have all the resources available to them is a good start point. And we also need to acknowledge that if there is something quite literal or factual and they don't have the facts, then obviously in a pure coaching session, we would be assisting them to work out where would they then go to do the research to get the answers to then come back next time. But there are times where the client says, you know, I don't want to do that work. Can I just tap into somebody else? Somebody else has done the work for me. So can I bypass that or shortcut it by having a bit of mentoring to save me, or to maybe hone it down so that I can then do the research that's more appropriate. So there are times where mentoring can shortcut things, but the risk, of course, is as the coach or the mentor, the risk is that we are then putting our own filters on that. Whereas if we allow the coach or mentee to go away and do their own research, it's their filters that are involved, not ours. So we just have to be quite careful. But as Dawn says, it's that contracting of being clear where we are operating within the boundaries of what we have set up, and making sure if we are straying out of those, that it's clear and transparent and appropriate to do so.
And I don't know, thank you so much. And I don't know, how do we say with times and other questions, but I have another question if nobody else has it before. Is it okay if I ask it? Do you have time?
Please do.
Yeah.
So let's say that, if coaching for the sake of example, expand awareness and mentoring transfer wisdom. It's not black and white, but let's put it. What do both share at their best?
Sorry, what? I'm not.
So let's say if coaching expand awareness of the client, and mentoring transfer wisdom, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what do both coaching and mentoring share at their best, in your view?
I think both of them at their best is that list of similarities I put at the start. Both of them are creating a safe space for their client to work in. Both of them are empowering the client to take whatever action they need to take to achieve their outcomes. So I think both of them have those similarities. And I think that at best, whether it's coaching or mentoring, it comes down to, has the client achieved what they need to achieve, regardless of how we have set that up or how we've delivered it, because the ultimate aim is we are providing a service to our clients to empower them to either be better versions of themselves or have better outcomes or get to where they want to get to faster, more easily, more effectively than if they were just left to their own devices. So I don't think there's any sort of hard and fast definition of what good looks like. I think it depends on the client and the client's needs. So I don't know if that's a good enough answer.
Yeah, I think it was just a recap of that slide, Nikki. Yeah, thank you. Great. I don't know, Kerry, if you, sorry, Catalina, if you were on when that slide came on, but you'll be able to see the slides with all the tick boxes later.
There you go. It was that one.
Yes, there we go.
That's my list of what good looks like. All of those skills are in play.
And I'm just looking on social media if there are any more questions. Anybody else on the call want to ask questions? I don't want to name names in case you feel under pressure like, oh, I wasn't going to ask a question. But if you do want to ask a question, you can put the question in the chat box, or you can simply unmute yourself. You don't even have to be on video. So no question is a silly question. If it's on your mind, somebody else will be thinking it as well. So while we've got Nikki in the hot seat for another 2 or 3 minutes, ask away.
And thank you in the chat for the reminder that the US version of CPD is CEU. So for those of you who are using CEU, then
thank you for that.
Equal applies. So thank you for that reminder.
So while we're waiting, in case there are any more questions, I just want to remind everybody that the IAPC&M coaches can add a mentoring accreditation to their professional evidence portfolio at a 50% discounted price of only £150, because we've already accredited you as a coach. So we know you've already signed a professional code of conduct, etc. This is probably the last year it's going to be that low. It's valid until the end of October, so you've got literally another couple of days. And of course, you still have 12 months to complete the process. You might think, well, I want to kickstart 2026 by offering coaching and mentoring, earn more money, so now is the best time. If you think, well, I know I want to do mentoring and offer that support, but I'm not ready right now, take advantage of the discounted fee now and use it when you're ready sometime next year. So there's no pressure, it's entirely up to you, but you do have another couple of days to buy in combo accreditation for only £150. And then I think the annual renewal is something like £20 a month, sorry, £20 a year on top of your existing annual renewal fee.
And I would definitely encourage that that additional accreditation, because we know that it's a crowded market. There are a lot of coaches and mentors, particularly, as I mentioned, there are a lot of informal mentoring arrangements that are already set up through charities or through organisations or in-house in companies. So to be able to distinguish yourself as someone who is professionally accredited as a mentor, that gives you an extra detail that the majority of service providers won't have in place. And whilst there are we know there are a couple of accreditation bodies for coaching, there's not a lot of sources where you can gain professional accreditation for mentoring. So I definitely advocate for our coaches who are either already offering mentoring or thinking of adding mentoring into their mix. Absolutely, definitely recommend that accreditation. It has been so useful for me. It has definitely sourced me additional clients that wouldn't have come on board if I hadn't got that accreditation.
And you were probably, in all fairness, Nikki, a bit of a pioneer to become accredited as both, because it's only recently that I'm hearing in the UK especially that people are wanting coaching and mentoring. And this is not just the corporate, this could be weight loss, it could be anything, that people are asking for more mentoring in a way that we've never had before.
I think some of that is because I've been a champion of that clarity between what is the difference between the two for a decade and a half, nearly 2 decades. I realized in my FD role, I was mentoring my team. People say, oh, you coached your team to success. No, I didn't. I mentored them. I was definitely mentoring my team as a manager. And so I've been a bit of a stickler for that difference, but in educating our audiences to the benefits of both and the differences between each of them, I think that's why we're seeing more clarity in the demand from our clients as well.
Yeah. And then we've got other countries like Jamaica who say it's all about the mentoring. Coaching is almost unheard of. So it just depends on the country you're from. So I'm going to wrap up now in the absence of any more questions that I can see on social media. But of course, you can post your questions and Nikki will find them, or you can go directly to the IAPC&M directory website and contact Nikki, or just post a question on the contact us and we'll make sure Nikki can respond to you directly. So the next masterclass, I mentioned this one was one of 2. The second one is coming up at 3 o'clock UK time with the equally dynamic Kerry Dorman, another fellow coach of the highest standard, who always, again, like Nikki, provides great content and value. So remember to tune in at 3 o'clock UK time for more learning.
3:30.
3:30. Okay, lovely. Thank you. So enjoy the rest of your day, whatever you're doing, and enjoy National Mentoring Day. And thank you for everyone's participation, especially you, our special guest speaker, Nikki. Thank you.